I came across Big Fork Brands recently, and it's become one of those finds you actually want to tell people about, and you don't find that often. Okay. They're doing bacon sausage, plus these really solid pork jerky snacks and Chicago style sauces. Basically, upgrade anything you throw them on burgers, hot dogs, fries, throw it on there. It works.
But I bet it's packed full of junk.
Actually, it's made with clean ingredients and real care. That's small batch with no shortcuts, and people are obsessed with the flavor. You can go over to bigforkbrands.com, use our code INFOGO at checkout, and get 20% off anything on the site.
You can find the link and our code in the show notes. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Wade,
And I'm Kat.
and that makes this a dash of info.
The little things you want to know.
So, Kat, have you ever heard of the Milankovitch cycles?
No, I haven't before this anyway.
So, what if the next ice age isn't random, but already scheduled? But not by humans, not by volcanoes, not even by chance, but the slow, predictable movements of the Earth itself. Tiny shifts, barely noticeable in a single lifetime, yet powerful enough to turn, well, green continents into ice and ice covered worlds back into forest. And these are the Milankovitch cycles, and they may be the closest thing Earth has to a, well, built in climate clock.
So, the Milankovitch cycles explain long term climate changes that unfold over tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of years, far beyond anything we notice in a single lifetime, but powerful enough to shape entire ice ages. They come down to three key movements. Eccentricity, the changing shape of Earth's orbit around the sun, shifting from more circular to more elliptical over long periods. Obliquity, the tilt of Earth's axis, which determines how intensely sunlight hits different parts of the planet, and precession, the slow wobble of that axis, which changes the timing of the seasons relative to Earth's position in its orbit.
Each of these cycles is driven by gravitational interactions, mainly with the moon, the sun, and massive planets like Jupiter and Saturn. And each one alters a critical factor: how solar energy is distributed across Earth's surface, especially at higher latitudes, right? On their own, these changes are subtle. They don't dramatically heat or cool the entire planet overnight. Instead, they generally shift patterns, slightly altering the strength of seasons, the length of summers, or how much sunlight reaches the poles. But when these cycles align in certain ways, their efforts reinforce each other.
A slightly cooler summer here, a little less sunlight at the poles there, over thousands of years, that can allow snow to persist, ice to build, and glaciers to expand across continents. The opposite alignment, increased summer sunlight, melts that ice back, ushering in warm interglacial periods like the one we live in today. So while each movement is small on its own, together they act like long-term climate control system, slow, predictable, and powerful enough to reshape the entire planet.
Let's begin with eccentricity, the slow shift in how Earth travels around the sun. So, what is it? Well, it's really the shape of Earth's orbit, particularly how much it deviates from a perfect circle, right? While we often picture Earth moving in a steady, uniform path, that path actually stretches and relaxes over time. It cycles between a nearly circular orbit, and this is where the Earth stays a relatively consistent distance from the Sun. A more elongated orbit, well, this is where that distance varies more noticeably over the course of a year. And these changes are not random. They're the result of a long term gravitational influence, especially from large neighboring planets like Jupiter and Saturn, which they kind of tug on Earth's orbit and kind of really messes with the time scales. This motion flows into dominant rhythms, roughly 100,000 years, and a longer cycle, well, that's roughly around 400,000 years.
Now, why does it matter? At first, it might sound minor, and in terms of total energy reaching Earth, it is. The planet still receives nearly the same overall amount of solar radiation, but the distribution of that energy over the year begins to shift. When the orbit becomes more elongated, the gap between perihelion, which is the closest point to the sun, and aphelion, the furthest point, increases. That distance changes how strongly seasons are expressed, but only under the right conditions. Now, this is where eccentricity becomes important. It doesn't act alone, it modulates the effects of other cycles, especially precession. In other words, eccentricity controls how much impact those other shifts can actually have. It's less of a driver and more of an intensity dial.
Climate impact. When eccentricity is higher, seasonal contrast can become more pronounced if precession aligns with it. Differences in solar energy between parts of the year, well, they're more noticeable. When eccentricity is lower, those differences are minimized. Seasonal variations tend to be more balanced over time. Right now, at the time of this recording, anyway, Earth is, well, it's at low intensity phase, meaning the orbit is closer to circular. That keeps variations in Earth to Sun distance relatively small across the year. But the key takeaway here is eccentricity doesn't directly create ice ages. It kind of sets the conditions that allow other cycles to either strengthen or weaken long term climate trends.
Obliquity, the tilt that controls the extremes. Obliquity refers to the angle of Earth's axis, how much the planet is tilted as it spins. At the moment, that tilt sits about 23.4 degrees. But it isn't constant. Over long stretches of time, it slowly shifts back and forth, about 22.1 degrees representing a smaller tilt to about 24.5 degrees representing a greater tilt. Now, this movement follows a steady cycle lasting roughly 41,000 years, driven by gravitational interactions, primarily with the moon, which helps stabilize Earth's tilt, and to a lesser extent, other planetary forces.
But why does all this matter? This tilt is the fundamental reason seasons exist in the first place. Without it, sunlight would be, well, distributed more evenly across the planet, and seasonal change would be minimal. But even slight adjustments in that angle can, well, it can dramatically change how energy is distributed between the equator and the poles. With a greater tilt, sunlight reaches higher latitudes more directly during summer. This intensifies seasonal contrast. Summers, well, they grow hotter, while winters grow colder. With a smaller tilt, sunlight is spread more evenly. Seasonal differences soften. Summers are, well, a little cooler, and winters are less severe. It's a small geometric shift, but it has global consequences.
The most critical effects show up in the polar regions, where the balance between melting and accumulation of ice is especially sensitive. When the tilt increases, polar summers receive more direct sunlight, ice melts more efficiently, and this supports warmer interglacial conditions. When the tilt decreases, summers become cooler at higher latitudes, snow and ice are more likely to persist year after year, and glacial growths become possible. Over thousands of years, that difference determines whether massive ice sheets expand across continents or gradually retreat. Right now, Earth's tilt is slowly decreasing, which means seasonal extremes are very gradually becoming less pronounced.
You know what? I think we should take a small break. I got to get some water and check out some of the big fork brands.
Yes, me too.
We'll be right back.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Have you thought about what you're getting your mom for Mother's Day? At Cozy Earth, they have a full line of apparel PJs, shirts, socks, you name it, they have it. And if you buy any of their bedding, they have a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty, free shipping on orders over $50 or more. And our listeners get an exclusive discount of 21% off just by using our code INFOGO at checkout. And you can do that at cozyearth.com. Find the link and the code in the show notes. If you're laying mulch, bedding animals, covering seeds, or just want your property looking right, there's one name you need to know. Irwin Farms, Middle Georgia's #1 wheat straw provider. When it comes to quality wheat straw, it matters. Clean, consistent, and ready to work because they don't cut corners, they bell it. Whether you're a homeowner, gardener, farmer, or you're just getting your hands dirty for the first time, they've got you covered. You can find a link in the show notes. Just Google Middle Georgia's #1 wheat straw provider. Either way, you'll find Irwin Farms. So now that we're back, precession. Precession is the gradual wobble of Earth on its axis as it rotates. A simple way to picture it is when spinning a top. As it spins, its axis doesn't stay perfectly aligned. It traces out a slow circle. Earth behaves in a similar way, though on a much larger time scale. This motion is caused primarily by gravitational forces from the sun and moon acting on Earth, well, slightly bulging the equator. Over time, those forces gently shift the orientation of the axis. One full cycle of this wobble, well, it takes about 26,000 years.
What changes, though? As this motion unfolds, the direction of Earth's axis in space gradually shifts. Today, the North Pole points roughly toward Polaris. Thousands of years ago, it pointed towards Vega. In the distant future, it will continue tracing that slow circle across the sky. But the more important effect isn't the stars, it's how this shift changes the timing of Earth's seasons relative to its orbit. In other words, precession alters when each hemisphere experiences summer and winter during Earth's journey around the sun.
This timing shift has a powerful influence on climate because it changes how solar energy is distributed across the Earth. For example, if summer in a hemisphere occurs when Earth is closer to the sun, sunlight is more intense, summers tend to be warmer. If summer occurs when Earth is further from the sun, sunlight is slightly reduced and summers are cooler. Over long periods, that difference becomes critical because the fate of ice sheets often comes down to one factor. Cool summers allow snow and ice to persist and gradually build. Warm summers, well, it melts that ice away. So precession can tip the balance in either direction, either supporting the growth of glaciers or contributing to their retreat. Its effect becomes especially strong when paired with eccentricity, which determines how big the distance difference is in the first place. Together, they influence whether seasonal changes are subtle or strong enough to reshape the planet.
Individually, each of these cycles is subtle, almost imperceptible on human timescales. They don't suddenly freeze oceans or melt ice sheets overnight. Instead, they make small adjustments to Earth's geometry and motion. But when they interact, their combined effects target something incredibly sensitive in the climate system: the amount of summer sunlight reaching high latitudes, especially in the northern hemisphere. That detail is critical. Ice sheets don't grow simply because winters are cold. They grow when summer isn't warm enough to melt what winter leaves behind. So the real tipping point for ice ages comes down to this balance. Less summer sunlight at high latitudes, which, equals snow and ice were persistent year after year, where glaciers gradually expand. More summer sunlight increases melting and ice sheets shrink and retreat. Now, over tens of thousands of years, these small differences accumulate. Layers of snow compress into ice. Ice spreads outward, covering vast regions of land. Then, as the cycles shift again, that ice slowly recedes. This ongoing push and pull, driven by the alignment of eccentricity, obliquity, and precession, is really what governs the long term rhythm of glacial and interglacial periods, shaping Earth's climate history on a planetary scale.
So where are we now? At this moment, Earth, its orbit is relatively circular, so less eccentricity. Tilt is slowly decreasing. Precession is actively shifting seasonal timing. These changes are ongoing but extremely slow. They operate on timescales far beyond a human lifetime. Milankovitch cycles, well, they explain Earth's natural climate rhythms. They help scientists understand past ice ages, long-term climate trends, natural variability in Earth's system. But there's an important distinction. These cycles unfold over thousands to hundreds of thousands of years. Modern climate change is happening over decades to centuries. That speed is what really makes the difference.
So, the Milankovitch cycles remind us of something really profound. Earth isn't static, it is constantly shifting, adjusting, and evolving. The rise and fall of ice ages, the spread of glaciers, the warming of entire continents, all of it is tied to slow, predictable motions written into the movement of our planet.
The next ice age isn't a mystery, it's part of a cycle. But now, for the first time, something else is influencing the climate at a much faster pace. And that raises a new question. Are we still following Earth's natural clock?
Or are we starting to rewrite it?
Hmm.
If you'd like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out.
If you would like to support this show, you can take advantage of some of our sponsors or Patreon. Either way, you can find those links in the show notes.
Oh, and as always, William and I want to thank you for listening.
Whether you've been with us from day one or just tuned in, thank you.
You can join the Facebook group at Info on the Go
Over there, you can share with us your show ideas, or
or ask us a question.
I'll take my or out. But make sure you hit that follow button wherever you get your podcast.
Send us a text using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
And leaving that review really does help others find us. But if you would like to email Kat and I directly, you can do so at
infoonthegopodcast@gmail.com.
and you can find that link in the show notes too. Till next time.
Stay curious.
If your stomach's been off lately, like bloating, reflux, or just not feeling right, there's a simpler way to get back on track.
With Professor B's Digestive Aid, which is an all natural blend of pure honey and ancient apitherapy, a herb rooted in Roman tradition. You know how at least they had some things right? It's designed to gently support and balance your digestion.
No long ingredient list, no harsh additives, just two powerful, time tested ingredients working together. It's even the same formula used to help cancer patients manage digestive discomfort.
And right now, you can get an exclusive 10% off any product. Just use our code INFOGO at checkout.